Have you ever wondered why, despite soaring debt, political dysfunction, and economic strain, the US dollar is still the world's reserve currency? And why America still holds the role of global superpower? And more importantly, have you wondered how long it can last? Because right now, we may be living through the slow unwinding of the post World War II order, and how America manages this movement will define not just its own future, but the future of the entire global economy. After World War II, the world was in ruins. Europe was devastated, Asia fractured, global trade shattered. In 1944, at the Bretton Woods Conference, the United States, holding most of the world's gold and the only intact industrial base, proposed a new financial system. Every other currency would peg to the US dollar, and the US dollar would peg to gold. It worked because it brought trust and stability. But it wasn't just money. The US Navy guaranteed freedom of the seas. The Marshall Plan pumped billions into rebuilding Europe, while America's alliances in Asia helped countries like Japan and South Korea industrialize. And the global trade networks expanded, and for decades the world prospered. Some nations, especially former colonies, started behind, but many caught up quickly. America's dominance wasn't just economic, it was systemic. Then came 1971. President Richard Nixon ended the dollar's convertibility into gold.
We must protect the position of the American dollar as a pillar of monetary stability around the world. In the past 7 years, there's been an average of one international monetary crisis every year. Now, who gains from these crises? Not the working man, not the investor, not the real producers of wealth. The gainers are the international money speculators. Because they thrive on prices, they don't create. We speculators have been waging an all-out war on the American dollar. The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculator. I directed Secretary Conway to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
The famous Nixon shock. For the first time, the dollar wasn't backed by a tangible asset, just by faith in the US government. Critics called it a betrayal. Yet the dollar survived. Why? Because nothing else came close. Europe wasn't strong enough, Japan wasn't big enough, and global trust was still concentrated in America. Since then, American policymakers have relied heavily on debt and money printing. It worked in crisis. Take the 2008 global financial crisis, for example. The Federal Reserve created trillions of dollars to stabilize the market that saved Wall Street and global finance, but it inflated asset prices. The side effects? Workers, savers, and retirees were left behind. Take housing as an example. In the 1950s, the cost of a typical home in the US was roughly 2 to 3 times the average household income. That meant many families could afford a house on a single breadwinner's salary and still build savings. Today, the national median home price is closer to 5 to 6 times median household income. And in major cities like Los Angeles or New York, the ratio can reach 8 to 10 times. Even with 2 incomes, many young families find home ownership much harder to achieve. The American dream hasn't disappeared because people stopped working hard. It's because the financial and housing systems have tilted against them over time. We have been here before. The repeal of Glass-Steagall in 1999 paved the way for risky speculation on Wall Street, leading directly to the subprime mortgage collapse and the 2008 financial crisis. In response, new agencies like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB, were created to stop predatory lending and protect households. And yet, just years later, lobbying dollars are eroding these protections. The CFPB's funding and power are under constant attack. Lessons unlearned, it seems. Rules forgotten. Cycles repeating. Now ask Americans what they want. They will tell you affordable housing, lower grocery bills, better healthcare. But what do they get instead? Tariff wars, reshoring mandates, and political promises to bring back manufacturing jobs. And here's the catch. Manufacturing seems to account for less than 9% of US employment. America's real competitive edge is in intellectual property and innovation. Companies like Nvidia designing cutting-edge chips, Apple reshaping global tech, biotech driving medical breakthroughs. Yet, instead of empowering these high-income earning sectors, Washington often penalizes them with restrictions, regulations, and trade disputes. In chasing yesterday's job, America risks undermining tomorrow's high-paying industries. Which brings us to the political system itself. What enabled all this to happen? Is America really a democracy in the truest sense? Is this the will of the people? Every state, no matter its size, gets 2 senators. So 600,000 people in Wyoming have the same Senate power as 39 million people in California. The Electoral College means a few swing states can decide the presidency, while millions of votes elsewhere carry little impact. On top of that, gerrymandering allows politicians to choose their voters instead of voters choosing their politicians. And then came Citizens United in 2010. This Supreme Court ruling allowed unlimited corporate and billionaire money to flow into elections, and that changed everything. Ordinary voters became less like decision makers and more like legitimizers. Their role is simply to ratify choices already shaped by corporate donors and lobbying dollars. It's like being invited to order from a menu, but the menu itself was written by the wealthy and powerful. And here's the deeper issue. America's businesses and political systems are wired for short-term thinking. Public companies live and die by quarterly earnings. Every 3 months, profit must beat expectations. The structure incentivizes immediate gain over long-term responsibility, ignoring the economic, social, and environmental costs. Now add politics. With corporations funding Congress, legislation is tailored not to build resilience, but to squeeze out another quarter of profit. Deregulation, tax loopholes, subsidies, these become the norm. And where are the citizens in all of this? Distracted. The social media revolution has fractured attention, flooded platforms with outrage and misinformation, and kept citizens fighting each other instead of holding leaders accountable. It's a perfect storm where corporations maximize profits, politicians maximize power, and nobody takes care of the long-term public good. As if that weren't enough, America's tools of global influence, its sanctions, are slowly showing diminishing returns. After 2022, when the US froze Russia's dollar reserves over the Ukraine war, other nations took notice. If the US can use dollar dominance as a weapon against one country, what is stopping it from doing the same to us? Now, Russia is trading in rubles and yuan. China and Brazil have signed agreements to settle trade in their own currencies. Even India is experimenting with rupee-based settlements. The US dollar still dominates global reserves today, down from 31% approximately a generation ago. But slowly, cracks are forming. De-dollarization was once unthinkable. Today, it's a conversation that even Donald Trump has mentioned a few times. Tomorrow, it may as well become a reality. That possibility always exists. So what comes next? Not America collapsing overnight. America is a big, strong country. Not the dollar disappearing next week. It's still the global reserve currency, but the emergence of a different kind of world. A world that is no longer unipolar, but multipolar, where power is shared between the US, China, and EU, and rising blocs like BRICS, where currencies compete, trade fragments, and geopolitics feels once again like the Cold War, but without one clear winner. And the sad thing about it is that it's going to slow down our technological progress and the human development progress, as well as the quality of living index. We are witnessing history, the unwinding of the order that defined the last 80 years. The dollar won't vanish tomorrow. America won't fall off the map. But the pillars of its dominance, trust, trade, governance are under strain. If America cannot restore political stability at home and rebuild global trust abroad, the question becomes not if its dominance fade, but how the world reorganizes afterwards. Will it be cooperative? Will it be chaotic? Will it be fragmented? One, two, three means the future will not be unipolar. It will be multipolar. And those who prepare early, whether countries or companies or investors, will shape it. Now, I don't speak as a Republican or a Democrat. I speak as a foreign investor in America. Why do we invest in US stocks? Well, it's because America still commands the largest, deepest, and most innovative capital markets in the world. That remains its greatest strength. But strengths can be squandered, leadership can be lost, and the empire that built the global system now risks losing it. The only question is what replaces it? Friends, I would like to hear from you. Please put your thoughts in the comment section. I always like to read your comments and respond to them as quickly as possible. And if you're not yet subscribed to our channel, what are you waiting for? Press subscribe, join the channel, help grow our community. And if you like this video, please do not hesitate to press the like button out there. It helps us out with the YouTube algorithm and sends this video to more people like you who want to see this video. Thanks and have a great day. Bye for now.